Welcome back to another 50 States of Strange. You are not going to see my face this time for the outro or intro because I started filming this the week I got really sick. So you're just going to hear me talk and you're going to see a pretty Christmas tree in the background because when I filmed this, it was still Christmas time. So yeah. Today we're going to talk about West Virginia, and West Virginia has some fairly famous serial killers and a pretty famous monster. And I decided that I was going to do a little bit of a different painting technique today. My muse is going to be probably the most famous monster from the area, and I even have a little figure of it that'll pop up later that will help give me some more muse. But I decided to do more of like an 1800s brown scale type like photograph. That's what I was thinking in my head. So I'm going to be using a lot of like brown and yellow tones and kind of making it seem like as if it's like old timey. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. As always, before I begin, I am probably going to be talking about some disturbing things because I'm going to be mentioning some serial killers, some murders, some monsters. You know, it could freak some people out. So if you're not into that thing, this video might not be for you. But if you're into it, then let's go. I didn't do too much about serial killers on this state. I could have definitely dug a lot more, but I just came across a couple that caught my eye right away, and I knew I should toss them in. And so, first name I came across was Charles Manson. Apparently, the guy lived there with his aunt for a little bit, which I did not know. I should really probably look more into Charles Manson because even though he's ridiculously popular and everybody for the most part knows who he is, and there's been ridiculous amounts of docuseries and documentaries and stuff on him, I could still fill a book with stuff that I don't know because he's just someone that I haven't dug into that much. But I will eventually, and also I recommend you do it too because very interesting and disturbing guy. Another one that I came across was Harry Powers. He is also known as the Lonely Hearts Killer, not to be confused with the Lonely Hearts Killers who were in New York, and they come later on down the road. Harry Powers actually did his Lonely Heart ad killings while he was looking for love all the way back in the 1930s. He was arrested and convicted in 1931 and executed in 1932 because when these beautiful women would answer his ads for love in the paper, he would then murder them and steal their money. What a guy. So that's actually all I really found for serial killers because as I was going down the rabbit hole of looking at stuff, I found a murder that popped up, and so I got like really into that instead. So I'm going to talk about that now. Sorry if you wanted more serial. Oh my gosh. Sorry if you wanted more serial killer stuff. If you would like more, then I could always come back and do more. If there's states that I've done and you guys are like, oh, this happened here, what about this? Or, oh, have you heard about this? Definitely feel free to comment it down below because I have no problem going back and researching again and revisiting the states eventually. So yeah, do not be afraid to tell me what you want to hear about. And Marvin, the Mothman, has decided to come sit with us while I paint. Yeah, spoiler alert, the Mothman is our famous monster of this state, and I'm painting him, so, I mean, I might as well ruin the surprise anyway before I get there. Okay, back to the current topic at hand, which is murder, and I'm going to be talking about the murder of Irene Wilson in 1963. This one is cray-cray. I'm just gonna go in like the chronological order in which things were described. So the story goes that Irene's husband, Delfred, who is a night watchman, is at work and he calls home to just check in on her and she doesn't answer. And she keeps not answering, so of course he starts getting more and more freaked out and he calls the neighbors and is like, hey, my wife's not answering. Will you like go check on her? So the neighbor sends her two daughters, Juanita, who's 14, and Diane, who's 15, over to go check. And these poor girls, I cannot imagine how it must have felt for them to walk in on this. I feel so bad for them. This is a graphic content warning because I am going to be describing in detail exactly what happened to Irene, and it is gruesome. If you do not want to hear these details, I will place a timestamp below in the comments of when I am officially done talking about these details. Irene was stabbed multiple times. She was stabbed a total of 52 times, and there could be a connection because she was 52 at the time that she died. Some say that it was connected to her age, and that's why she was stabbed 52 times, but there's no official proof of that. Not only had she been stabbed multiple times, but she had been hit in the jaw so hard that she had a broken dental plate. There were bruises and lacerations all over her head. Her hair and part of her head had been burned, and what she was wearing had been torn and burned as well. So, I mean, it was just like an absolute gruesome attack. This had to have been personal. This wasn't just like, oh, this lady happened to be home when I was robbing her house, and so, like, killed her when I robbed it. Like, this was straight up personal. When authorities were checking out the scene, too, they noted that it didn't seem that there had been any struggle. There was no money taken or money left out, so it wasn't like robbing was the goal. And she had been sitting in the chair when she was attacked. And so, I mean, I was looking at all these and I was like, okay, well, she obviously knew her attacker. And the more I was looking at her husband, he was actually suspected, but he was never convicted. No one actually ended up being convicted for her death. And there had been notes of Delfrid having a temper from people who knew him and Irene. And when they described Irene, they always described her as so wonderful and happy and go-lucky. And they would describe Delfrid as, you know, kind of the opposite. So I straight up think that it was him, but there was nothing that ever truly connected him. It was all circumstantial. And on top of that, 5 months after her death, Delfrid actually died of a heart attack. Now, is that karma? Is it dying of a broken heart? I don't know. Either way, it's a pretty sad story all the way around. The fact that no one ever gets convicted of her murder is the most upsetting part to me because I feel like the authorities just gave up. Like, if Delfrid really did do it and, you know, he died, then cool, trash took itself out. But if it wasn't him and the person who really did it was like out there still and they just freaking gave up and pretty much walked away from the whole situation of trying to actually find who killed her, that makes me so mad. Even just for the closure, like for her family, like they couldn't have just tried a little harder. Okay, on from the sad murder and onto creepy creatures. Of course, we gotta start with the Mothman because he is our star of the show today. The Mothman started being seen in the 1960s, and he's described as this big ol' honking creature with a huge wingspan and glowing eyeballs that likes to fly around in the woods. I don't know if I don't know how I'd react if I saw something like that flying. For some reason, when I see things running at me, like, yeah, it freaks me out. But when something's flying at you, there's just like a whole other level of like, how do I avoid this? And if that doesn't freak you out enough, West Virginia actually has a slew of interesting creatures out there. But the more memorable ones include the Grafton Monster, which is described as a tall, skulky headed creature with skin like a seal. Gross. I love seals, but I don't want to see that kind of skin texture on something that looks like a dude. You can also see the Phantom of the Flatwoods, which is described as pretty much an alien. Y'all got some aliens over there in West Virginia, apparently. Oh, I'm sorry. Extraterrestrial. extraterrestrials. And finally, I'm going to mention the Sonarly Yow because I'm a dog person and anything to do with big dogs, I love it. I would be seeing a huge dog creature and be like, come home with me. And I'm going to end off the state with some paranormal because we got to throw the paranormal in there. And this place is definitely on my paranormal road trip checklist. I would love to investigate here. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is definitely on my paranormal bucket list. One of the places I for sure want to investigate. And before you come at me and tell me it's pronounced Allegheny, I have been specifically told that it is pronounced Allegheny, so don't come at me. Even if you are not a paranormal buff and you are a history buff, this is still a dope place to visit. It was built in 1858 and it was halted during the Civil War, the production was, and then afterwards they just started building it again. But it's made out of hand-cut stone, and it is the largest hand-cut stone building in the nation. They opened it in 1864, and it was ran by the state government. It was originally built for 250, and by the end of it, they were housing over 2,400 people. The famous clock tower that you see wasn't added until 1871, and the property is 666 acres. Wow, gotta love those numbers. But it was closed down for use in 1994. That is pretty freaking recent. I guess not super recent because that was almost 30 years ago now. Ew, that makes me want to vomit. I can't believe that's almost 30 years ago. But anyway, I feel like over 100 years is a really long time for a place to run. And that concludes all the strange things I have for you in West Virginia today. And here's my strange painting of the Mothman flying through the trees. I don't really know how I feel about the painting yet, but we're done with it. Thank you guys for watching, and I am so sorry that this episode was kind of like thrown together. The week I got sick just really kicked my butt. But this was the first episode of 2022, and I don't want you guys to think that this is how they're all going to be. I promise they'll be better. But thank you for tuning in, and you guys stay safe out there. Don't get picked up by the Mothman or any extraterrestrials, and I'll see you guys next time. Boo-bye.